para nós prazer de estar com outro visita. Nós está de visita. Regularmente nós está recebendo de visita ou nós também fazemos visita. E aí nós fazemos visita e nós temos junto com nós duas pessoas que têm de importância para nós compartilhar com nós informação que não dona nós. Nós estamos com Lloyd. Lloyd, bom dia.
Bom dia.
E nós está junto com Lloyd, seu guest, com o Dr. Hausman, Marvin Hausman.
Bom dia, bom dia.
E aí nós também temos tanto de Lloyd como de Dr. Marvin Hausman informação tocante de produto relatado a algo que nós estamos mirando todo dia e nós estamos usando todo dia, mas agora nós também papel tocante de o qual que nós também introduzir de uma forma medicinal. Lloyd, o que você conta-nos de produto qual tu vai utilizar para melhorar a medicina?
Sim, George, danke para a uitnodiging a trobe dentro do programa. Sempre nós temos para compartilhar a melhor coisa que é possível para nós servidores. Tá sendo que nós está aqui com uma pessoa muito importante. Essa aqui é o Dr. Marvin Hausman de Merca, que atraja riba e produto basado riba e medicinal para os estudos, que hopi é uma coisa que já sabe já. É uma pessoa sumamente interessante. Ela vai contar sua história de como ela chega caminho e tanto de como está assim, o qual está assim, que segundo na minha opinião é algo sumamente importante para nossa comunidade.
Agora, você vai saber que produto não está hopi conhecido, mas qual é o produto que está preciso, Lloyd?
George, não está conhecido no mercado como Imusano, Glucosano e Grow. Três produtos que estão a base de para o medicinal. Então, Hausman ele vai dar uma explicação mais detalhada sobre isso.
Adriana's Academy for Arts and Science. Ciência pinta, toca piano ou guitarra, ciência trabalha com computer na Adriana's Academy for Arts and Science. Um instituto prático, caminha de uma forma fácil e agradável e um duche ambiente, grande e chique, por escolher para ampliar o conhecimento. Chama-nos ao telefone 461-5440 ou 523-8476 durante a hora de oficina para mais informação e inscrever. Adriana's Academy for Arts and Science é Instituto Criollo para o Desenvolvimento. De meu sonho, me por viajar round mundo. Me escolhe para viajar first class, riba minha cama e matras open. PCI me compra agora matras open e ganha 50% de rebaixo, riba é de 2 matras. Matras open, para dormir cômodo, duche e saúde. Obtenível na Mueblerama NV, Corsou, Goisco Building, Unit K, telefone 738-7766. St. Martin, Colbe, telefone 001721 544-5095. Mita dorme duche, riba cama e matras open. E mita passa intermedia, tem alegria. As we said in our first part of our program, Misalu, Bosalu, Nosalu, we are here in company of a very well-known person in the United States. That's Dr. Marvin Hausman. Marvin, welcome with us.
Bom dia, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Marvin, we are enjoying here the sun, which is part of the vitamin D that we need.
Yes.
And it's very, very amplious for us and we are enjoying it. But a part of that, there are certain things that you recommend that it is good for us to take care of in our lives. What are they, Marvin?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. And you mentioned vitamin D. There's no question that there's lots of vitamin D coming down in Curacao. The sun it's near the equator. The angle of the light is perfect, but there are two types of vitamin D. And vitamin D is not a vitamin. Vitamin D is a hormone. It's a prohormone the skin of a human produces vitamin D3, but the mushroom produces vitamin D2. And we've done some work in Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, and we think there are different receptors for D2 versus D3. That, for example, in Alzheimer's disease, the neurons or nerve cells may be more responsive to D2 than D3. And we recently completed an experiment at the University of Texas in Galveston where we showed that only when vitamin D2 was inside the mushroom did it have an effect in Alzheimer's disease. We bought pure D2 and D3 from Sigma Chemical, and they had no effect on preventing Alzheimer's disease. So we think we've discovered the difference between the two receptors, and that brought us also to know more about mushrooms, that every mushroom is different, that a mushroom from Brazil can produce more D2 than a mushroom from Japan, so to speak. And these foods have tremendous alternative possibilities when it comes to disease processes. The nation of Canada came out with an article about 2 years ago that 16.1% of the death rate in Canada is due to vitamin D deficiency. That means that 37,000 people a year are dying of vitamin D deficiency and diseases associated with vitamin D deficiency. And the economic impact on Canada is something like $14 or $15 billion a year. And if you look at the island of Curacao, even with its smaller population, it must have a tremendous economic impact. Even though you could sit in the sun, but you stay indoors, you wear clothing, you wear sunglasses, you're not getting the proper amount of vitamin D. So that's where food supplements come in. You definitely need to have a healthy lifestyle. Let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine. Good nutrition is the same thing as having more policemen on the streets at night. You're going to have less crime. If you have better nutrition inside your body, your immune system is going to function better, and you're going to prevent disease. There's no question about it.
So Marvin, what you're telling us is that taking vitamin D, and especially vitamin D2, that is the secret.
Yes, you know, the D in vitamin D is really the D in diabetes. And we've done studies now in the United States totally equating vitamin D with diabetics. The lower the deficiency of vitamin D, the higher the incidence of diabetes. So if you have a high incidence of diabetes here, it's not just the sun. There are other components, and one of them may be D2, and they should be taking more mushrooms. And we have specialized in producing these products called Immusano, Sano for Health, Glucosano for glucose levels. And we have proven in the United States that Glucosano, for example, increases insulin sensitivity. One of the components in Glucosano is a mushroom from Brazil, and we had a double-blind FDA study showing that Agaricus blazei from Brazil lowers insulin resistance and allows people to lower their dose of oral diabetic drugs. And we think it's the vitamin D inside the Agaricus mushroom.
Well, we are very, very happy to have you here and telling us this, Marvin, because suppose that we never heard about this. How long would we have to live anymore? But you're telling us that we are reaching a very, very long age.
There's no question that you can reprogram your stem cells. And even diabetes is a loss of programming of your stem cells in the pancreas. So your pancreas produces insulin. So when you, and there are two types of diabetes. There's type 1 diabetes, which is a pancreatic deficiency, and then there's type 2 diabetes, which seems to be an autoimmune disease, that your body's reacting against your liver, against your kidney, and causing insulin resistance. So when you have insulin resistance, your pancreas is trying to produce more insulin, and it wears out. It can't keep producing all this insulin 24 hours a day. So if we could increase insulin sensitivity, and we think food can do that, this is an alternative approach to diabetes. And you know the relationship between diabetes and heart disease.
Yeah.
There's no question. We call it metabolic syndrome. Diabetes is a terrible risk factor for heart disease, and heart disease, you die. You also die from diabetes. These are two terrible diseases. They're going to devastate the population in the United States. Our government believes that within the next 10 years, 1 out of every 4 people in the United States is going to have diabetes. And that doesn't include the heart disease. We're talking about just the diabetes.
There was something very interesting you were telling me just in private. I want you to tell our people also, what about the fat around the belly?
Yes, this is stuff I'm learning. Look, I've been in medicine for 40 years. I went to medical school in 1963, probably before you were born, I bet, you know?
Oh yeah. So, thank you. Very
So, but think about that, 43, we're in 2012. The word nutrition was maybe mentioned twice in my 4 years of medical school. I'm now coming back to nutrition, and I'm coming back to the ability for nutrition to prevent disease. It's alternative medicine. And the body is crying out for these components. And I recently was told I was in Hong Kong, and we want to set up a diabetes study in Hong Kong. And tonight I'm going to show it to Sehos, this particular model. I'm going to show data, what we're talking about now. And they had a model of diabetes. It's called DB mouse. DB for diabetes, DB for diet. So it's a double knockout mouse that develops diabetes, okay? That mouse shows the scientists that there were 2 types of fat, brown fat and white fat. Brown fat is healthy fat. I'm telling you, I did not know this till recently. White fat is the killer fat. White fat has the toxins, and when you have a big belly, and you, as a surgeon, if you were to go check it out, and I could tell you now, I've operated on some heavy people, my arm sometimes goes in up to here. That's all white fat. That's killer fat. That's what causes heart disease. That's what causes stroke. You need more white fat, less white fat. You need the anti-inflammatories and the anti-free radicals that are present in brown fat. White fat contains all of these terrible toxins in our body.
Llámanos al teléfono 4650 Adriana's Academy for Arts and Science. Sinha sea pinta, toca piano of guitarra, sinha trabalha no computer na Adriana's Academy for Arts and Science. Um instituto prático, caminho de uma forma fácil e agradável de um duche ambiente, grande e chiqui, por escolher para ampliar o conhecimento. E a classe, riba mi cama e matras open. PCI me compra a War, um matras open e ganha 50% de rebaixo, riba é de 2 matras. Matras open, para dormir cômodo, duche e saúde. Obtenível na Mueblerama NV, Corsou, Goisco Building, Unit K, telefone 738-7766. St. Martin, Colbe, telefone 001721 544-5095. Mita drume duche, riba cama e matras open. E mita passa intermedia, tem alegria. Nosso visita televidente de nosso programa, nós temos 2 anos de bichita. Nós vai fazer bichita, se canal, melhor dito. Nanta Lloyd Felbert, junto com Marvin Hausman, Dr. Marvin Hausman. Nanta papel conosco tocante de certo produto que nós recomendar para nós usar, para nós paquetar nossa maleta e para nós chegar a uma idade avançada de boa condição. E lo que quero entender a de Lloyd, que está conta-nos tocante de lo qual nos acaba de atender de Dr. Hausman.
Sim, bom George, lo qual nos atende de Marvin Hausman, experto riba e área de inflamação crônico, que a dedicar sua vida para saúde e rende, tá que nós temos que começar com nós tá biba, que nós tá come. Anto, lo qual era acaba mencionar ora di evet, den barica, mi te kere hobi di no sende homenang, no sa a mi mesta, mi meeting, mi sa sigur meeting un tiki di evet no tiki so, mi tiki hopi di evet blanco. Dus lo qual nos tinku hasi, nos tinku kumisa husa e produkto ng maneira lo qual Hausman ting, kuta e imusano, ku glucosano, pa kumisa derecha lo que nota bom de nos corpo. Tesela lo qual nos tinku hasi.
Y definitivamente, manera también dice, el uso de producto como suplemento lo ayuda en el proceso.
Seguro, essa é a intenção, pero não é produto que não só, tem outro produto que está bom do mercado, naturalmente, para comer mais saúde, mas comer mais verdura, fruta que senam, tudo isso não usa.
Nós temos também tocante de vitamina D2, normalmente nós usamos D3.
Sim.
E como pode dar-nos como informação adicional, do qual nós acabamos de ter?
Bom, Bosano, a mim não é experto, o qual me acaba de atender agora aqui de Hausman, mas para mim está informação nova, algum dia está informação nova, pero está plantaardig, não? Dus botar para piano de vitamina D, que está bem de natureza, e não está vitamina que está produzir de uma maneira química, de uma maneira artificial, lá me põe assim. Então, ou seja, você vai ter solo, você vai ter vitamina D, e o corpo mesmo traz ele, mas se você vai comprar a vitamina D de butter, você make sure que esta vai trabalhar de uma maneira mais natural que possível, e não química.
Então, seguro, a atividade em solo aqui, não sai a nossa porção.
Me seguro, me quero mais a minha porção que está necessário para me começar a quitar o evento que eu tenho na minha barriga aí.
Tá para nós é prazer que você a nossa oportunidade de topa com você e compartilhar com os televidentes informação tocante de suplemento que nós recomendamos todo o nosso programa, glucosano, imosano e também grow. E nós está desejando tanto a você como Dr. Hausman êxito na benefício da humanidade.
Thank you, George.
In another talk we had with you, Dr. Hausman, you explained us about belly fat, and I want you to give us some more explanation why it is very important to reduce belly fat because of all the other circumstances that is related to it.
Well, you know, I guess everybody knows about Pac-Man. You know, Pac-Man, the little cartoons where they go and they gobble things up.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the games, the kids used to play Pac-Man games. Well, you have to think of your fat in terms of Pac-Man. So when you have a lot of belly fat, your body knows that there are bad things in the belly fat. So it sends a cell in there called a macrophage. That's a killer cell, and we know this for sure. And that macrophage goes in and it reacts with the belly fat. It eats it up. And the process is almost an immune reaction against belly fat. So when that happens, for whatever reason, a signaling protein goes to your liver. And we're looking into that now. That signaling protein stops the cell from responding to insulin. Oh, okay? So when that cell responds to insulin, it maintains the blood sugar. When it stops responding to insulin, blood sugar goes up. What does your pancreas do? It produces more insulin. What happens? How can it keep producing it time and time again? Because of all this body fat, it stops working. And you get diabetes, and you go on an oral diabetic drug. If it gets so severe, it becomes like a type 1 diabetes, and you need insulin injections. So many people in Curacao probably take insulin as well as the oral diabetic drug like
combination of
yes.
Yeah.
And we think, and that's the study we're doing now in the United States, and we're also going to do it with the white fat in Hong Kong. We're setting up in a mouse model of the white fat, brown fat, to see if we could stop this reaction from going on. And we think we will be successful. And we have anecdotal, when we say anecdotal, that means that we haven't done a controlled experiment, but we have, oh God, maybe 1,000 people on glucosano in the United States, and we're getting reports every day that their level of sugar goes down, and one of the most important test is called hemoglobin A1C. It's a stable test of diabetes, and that is going down. And they say in medicine, if you have a 10th or a 2/10 lowering of hemoglobin A1C, it's very insignificant.
Yeah.
A lot of patients are recording 0.8 and 0.9 decreases in hemoglobin A1C. So we've had a lady who her hemoglobin A1C was 8.1, now it's 7.2. That is very significant, and she had to lower her dose of metformin, the dose of her oral diabetic drug.
Actually, what you're telling me is that on a regular basis, you have to check your hemoglobin ABC.
A1C. A1C. Big A, number 1, C, big C. That is the best test. I don't know how expensive it is on the island, but that's your best test for diabetes. So if someone said to me, Hausman, I think you are pre-diabetic, or your blood sugar is 120 or 128, I don't know if you have diabetes. The test they get is the hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin is the protein that's in the red cell. Hemoglobin. Heme is blood. It carries oxygen.
Yeah.
Look at the connection between all this. The glucose binds to the same protein that carries oxygen. And when you have a heart attack, you have decreased oxygen carrying capacity. These are things we have to learn. These are things we have to look at. And maybe that is the very intimate relationship between diabetes and heart disease, and we're going to start looking at that. And that's why I'm here on the island, because I think diabetes is a devastating disease in Curacao, and I think we can actually slow down the occurrence of diabetes. Believe it or not, through nutrition, not through drugs. You use drugs only when you have a life-threatening condition. You must start early. You must start getting good nutrition. Get more Pac-Mans in your body. You know, the more Pac-Mans you have, the more you're going to fight against cancer and disease.
It was again a pleasure talking to you, Dr. Hausman.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you'll be here much more often to give us some information about things that are life-saving.
Well, I live near Canada in the state of Washington, so if I can come down and use your son and get my D3, I will bring mushroom D2 to Curacao. How's that?
It's a deal.
Okay.
Thank you.